Welcome to Illuminati Silver. We tell you the truth about silver. Today is Monday, the 25th of February, 2019, and we're publishing part 2 of our interview with Brother Anthony, an international property developer. In part 1, we briefly discussed some tips and hints as to why property investment can be lucrative, where utilizing certain auction sites, one can obtain the items that one would put into a property at vastly lower prices than one would normally pay even in the wholesale trade. In this continuation of the interview, Brother Anthony will reveal some other interesting facts. Let's get to it.
I'm going to put you on the hop here because I've not mentioned this to you before this briefing.
Thank you.
But I have a copy of the Times newspaper in front of me. And there's a headline on the front page. Let me just read it to you. It says, "Ban gas hobs and heating in 6 years, ministers told. Gas boilers and cookers should be banned in new homes within 6 years to meet Britain's legally binding emissions targets. The government's climate change advisory body recommends today. Developers must be forbidden from connecting homes to the gas grid." And for the benefit of non-British, when we say gas, we're literally talking not what we put in cars, obviously with respect, but actual gas as opposed to electricity, heating and cooking. So developers must be forbidden from connecting homes to the gas grid and should instead be forced to install low-carbon heating systems, according to a report by the Committee on Climate Change. The move would mean that newly built homes would not be able to have gas stoves and would need to be fitted with alternatives such as induction hobs. Now, I genuinely have not mentioned this to you before this interview. What's your immediate response to that?
Well, if you were to buy a brand new apartment in the UK, I'd say 80% of them come with just electric.
Right.
Electric heaters, electric cookers, electric hobs. So some developers are used to it.
Okay.
You've also got the problem, we had a tragedy in London, the Grenfell tragedy.
Yes.
Where a block of flats went up. Unfortunately, lots of people lost their lives.
Right.
And that was blamed on a gas explosion. Mm-hmm. Obviously, gas is very flammable.
Yes.
As well as not being very environmental friendly, let's put it that way. So it can also be dangerous, and there's a lot of money at the moment being spent on recladding buildings so that they're safer in case of a gas leak.
Now, the Home Builders Federation condemned this proposal, saying that it would make houses harder to sell because gas boilers were cheaper and consumers liked them.
Well, we've got a position at the moment where they're insisting on sprinkler systems in part of the UK.
Right.
Which, again, is not being seen to be fair to developers. Because it's an extra cost. It hasn't proven that they make any difference. I would prefer most fires are electrical fires. I would prefer there to be more electrical inspections than having to put in a sprinkler system, which is costly. And if it goes off by mistake, can cause flooding in the property and insurance problems.
Right.
So that's one thing. A few years ago, flavour of the month was solar power.
Yes.
People were putting solar tiles on their roofs. But as they were buying into contracts with the solar producers for maybe 20, 25 years with the tariffs,
yes,
they found it difficult to sell their houses because they were stuck in a contract.
Right.
Not everybody wants a house with solar power. What you find sometimes is the government knee-jerks. They might find over the next year or so another way to reduce carbon footprints or be more economical, which won't mean the house builders have to follow this regulation. It seems to be a suggestion. I'm sure there'll be a white paper on it and consultation before they finally come up with an answer. But what did they say? Right, buy a diesel car. Diesel's more economic.
Yes.
Then suddenly Europe say, we don't like diesel cars. We want all diesel cars phased out by 2026, I think it is, something like that.
Right.
So
right.
suddenly what seems economic and clean for the environment one day changes. Technology moves so quick. We might find that in a couple of 2 years' time, there's another solution.
Right.
So I would take that with a bit of tongue-in-cheek for now. If it does happen,
Yes.
Again, that's going to impact on the number of houses built.
Right.
Developers build for a profit.
Yes.
Some major developers aren't building as many houses as they used to. The local authorities and local governments certainly aren't building as many as they
Why
used to.
is that? Why is that? Why is that the situation?
They've over-relied on private builders for a number of years.
So why haven't the private builders built them then, if there's profits to be made?
Because of all the regulations. If you do something wrong, you can't get planning permission, or if you don't work out a project correctly, you overspend and you don't get profits. There's no grants for private builders because it's seen as an investment, as a risk.
Right, right. So one of the reasons for discussing property is that in any investment portfolio, it is recommended that you have a certain exposure to the property market. Now, that could be achieved through shares and equities in properties.
Yeah.
It could be achieved through the physical ownership of properties or the sharing of ownership of properties. But equally, the property market is such that it has a profound effect on the underlying economy, which, if we, as in 2008, for example, have another property collapse as a result of too many mortgages being sold to too many people who could not afford to repay them, in essence. I mean, it's more complicated than that, but that was it in essence. That could seriously affect, if that were to be repeated, that could seriously affect the underlying economy, the value of the currency, and of course, to our listeners, which will be of the profound interest, the price of gold and silver will be affected by that, clearly. So my question to you is, do you think, certainly as far as the UK is concerned, it'd be a little unfair to ask you about the US because you're not focused on the US, and to be fair, the US, one state is very different from another, and you can't just talk about the United States as a global, one single global mass, as it were, because there are some states where properties are rising considerably and others where they're actually declining. But as far as the United Kingdom is concerned, do you think we need to worry about our property prices generally? And how do you think they could impact on the economy in the foreseeable future?
Well, first and foremost, a property is where somebody lives.
Yes.
If it's your property, then property prices going up and down don't really affect you if you're happy where you're living.
Right.
It's only when you come to move or you need to cash in your chips, so to speak,
yes,
that's when it affects you. If you're an investor, what I say to my investors, well, my portfolio is quite simple. As I say, I've got building from the ground up. So currently I can build a property for £100,000 and it will value up at 180 to 220,000.
Right.
So if the worst happens and I have to sell it for 140,000,
you're still making money.
Correct. Also, the other properties I invest in are very low cost properties.
Right.
£40,000 is next to no money.
That's what, $50,000 or just over?
Yes. And we've got a model, and I don't really want to talk about the model here. I might do an Inner Sanctum.
Yes.
But we've got a model, and it works pretty well, where you take so many properties on and you sell so many properties. And it works, because as long as you stick to the model...
Now, this isn't Trump University, is it, Brother Anthony? I mean, you're not a Trump phoenix rising from the ashes, are you?
Well, I think if people investigate, they can find their own plans,
right,
their own schemes.
Right.
My business partners wouldn't be very happy,
yes,
if I spilt all the beans in this instance. What I would say,
well, you have mentioned you have mentioned the Inner Sanctum, and one of the things we are doing in the Inner Sanctum is looking at alternative investment products, and obviously we shall be discussing these with you in more depth within that.
Now, I know you've got some subscribers in Australia.
Yes, we do.
In Australia, I believe they've got an amazing thing called gearing.
Yes.
Now, I'm trying to get my head around it.
Right.
I've got a friend who's over from Australia in the UK looking to spread his investment by investing here as well.
Right.
He's told me that gearing is the best thing since sliced bread. I'm still trying to get my head around it.
Well, our understanding of gearing as a general concept, obviously, is that you can borrow more than you actually have, or leverage more than what you actually have.
It's the leverage with tax benefits on your income tax.
Okay.
So it's a little bit more complicated than that from what I'm led to believe.
Yes.
And I will be doing a research on it. Maybe we'll do a follow-up video for our friends in Australia and for people who are possibly looking to invest in Australia, just to give them an idea of what type of investment the gearing refers to.
So you will come back and do an interview with us on that within the Inner Sanctum and upon this novel non-Trump university in property investment idea.
Well, with my track record, I'll probably see you in 2.5 years.
Well, that's what I'm afraid of, because that was going to be my next question. If we don't see you until 2021-22, it might be too late.
Send out a search party.
We shall. Okay, before we close, because the video is now over 20 minutes long, any last parting shots?
Not really. Like I've said before, I'm pretty cautious. I spread my risk accordingly. Property is a good one, but we've also got gilts, bonds, high interest savings accounts if they still exist in this day and age. You've got your gold and silver. What are you doing in the gold and silver market? Just as a final sort of hurrah, gold has in pound terms it certainly has risen simply because the value of the pound has fallen compared to the dollar quite significantly post Brexit. Although there are signs of recovery now. It has gone up in dollar terms too, in fairness, and is starting to strengthen at the moment. We still think there will be a further dip ahead in the not too distant future, but we are nowhere near as bearish gold, perhaps a little bit more bearish silver, but not as bearish gold and silver as we once were. So what are you doing? That's a loaded question. What
do you do with all these profits that you're tucking under the mattress is really what I'm asking.
That's a loaded question because you know I like to collect coins.
Yes.
I like to collect sovereigns.
Yes.
And I do like to collect one or two a month.
Yes.
I do look out for years that I think are going to be going up in value in the future.
Yes.
So I'm sticking to my sovereigns for now.
Well, a little birdie has told us you have sort of meandered into the new world and started looking at a few Australian coins because you said they were pretty.
You can't doubt that. A bit like some of the Chinese silver trinkets that I've seen around your office.
Yes.
No, I'm going to stick to this at the moment.
Yes. You still think the profit's in property for the time being?
Yes.
For you?
Yes, for me personally.
Because that's your business.
And as I said, my investors are putting small amounts of money into properties to get quite a high yield.
Yes.
And it suits them. For example, if there's a collapse and your property's worth 40,000.
Yes.
And it goes down by 10%. You've lost 4,000.
Yes.
If you've got a property of 250,000.
But you would overcome that by renting the property out anyway.
Yes, correct.
So although perhaps you're not for the want of a better expression, obtaining the capital amount back immediately, you're actually obtaining a rental income.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And depending if it's if you're UK or it's a company,
yes,
we can refinance it anyway.
Right.
So we can get the money out. And obviously, as I said, part of the model is selling it.
Yes.
And we sell it at a certain stage. But we always look to grow the portfolio best we can. I'm not going to lie to you, recent legislation has made it a little bit more difficult.
Yes.
However, there are benefits in actually owning and renting properties through a company.
I have to say to the listeners, and I'm not going to lie here, but the reason you are gulping is because I'm speaking to you and you have a very large glass of red wine in your hand. So if our listeners hear a gulp, then they'll know what it is. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have really revealed that to them, but I was just conscious if the microphone has picked this up, they'll either think, why is he swallowing so hard? So, sorry, yes, I stopped you in your tracks.
Your hospitality knows no bounds.
It knows no bounds.
But I think that's enough for me today, and we'll keep the rest for a rainy day.
Okay.
But nice to be back.
One final question. We call you Brother Anthony because you're in the fraternity. Not all of our members, and by that I mean all of the members of the Inner Sanctum are in the Brotherhood. What are all your investors fellow Masons, or are they not? And be really honest.
No,
here.
Not at all.
Let's reveal the truth to our listeners.
I've got investors from South Africa.
Yes.
I've got investors from, believe it or not, Kazakhstan.
Yes. You're not colluding with the Russians, are you? I'm getting more worried as time goes on.
The next video we'll do, we'll have a lie detector, shall we?
Yes, I think we might need one. Yeah.
But there's a lot of people who've got a small amount of money.
Yes.
Who are unsure of what's happening in their countries.
Right.
Especially, as I say, what's happening in South Africa at the moment.
Yes.
One of the investors I deal with has government dispensation to bring a certain amount of currency into the UK every year. In Kazakhstan, there's a flourishing middle to upper class. They're a little bit uncertain. Just a few days ago, the president of Kazakhstan, who's been in power for about 29 years, who is a virtual dictator, benevolent one, sacked his whole cabinet and the whole of the politicians over there. There's been a few riots and protests on the streets.
Yes.
It was fueled by, I believe it was in Astana, there was a fire in a house or a flat, and 4 children died because the parents both had to go to work and they couldn't afford anyone to look after the children.
Really?
So it's, wherever you go in the world, unless you know the geopolitical situation, take your time. Don't rush into anything. As I say, I've got some contacts in Kazakhstan. I'll be going over to Kazakhstan in the next month or so, speaking with them, introducing them to myself again and the property opportunities over here.
Yes.
And we'll see what happens. And maybe I'll do a little video for you on Kazakhstan. And
will you do that? Yeah.
Yeah. I'll take some photos when I'm out there.
Okay.
I'll wear a nice pair of sunglasses so I can be as anonymous as you. But I'll certainly come back and we'll have a little chat about what's happening in Kazakhstan. If your listeners are interested in what's happening out there, if they're not interested, I'll just keep drinking my wine.
Brother Anthony, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We hope you have found this video interesting and informative. And if so, please give it a thumbs up and share it on social media. Please ensure that you have subscribed to our channel and press the bell sign so that you are notified of any future videos. Also, kindly visit our website at illuminatisilver.com, and if you haven't already done so, please subscribe either as a free or paying member for regular email updates and offers. Disclaimer: Illuminati Silver owners come from a background of banking, international wealth management and economics. Having now retired from these worlds, we are not qualified to give investment advice. Therefore, this and other productions must not be deemed to be giving such advice and merely represent the personal views of its owners.